Not only for the Pledge of Allegiance, but stay standing for the invocation by Pastor Phil Hoard of the Union Bible College and Academy. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Dear Jesus, we thank you for a beautiful day here in central Indiana. As the weather turns warmer and the sun shines a little bit longer, we reflect upon the many blessings that we have. Thank you for this community. Thank you for our first responders. Thank you for our mayor and his team and our city council. Lord, I pray that you just give them wisdom and guidance throughout this meeting. Lord, and may we do justly, love mercy, and to walk humbly with you. It's in thy name we pray. Amen.
Thank you. President Tam, would you like to run the meeting, please?
Thank you, Mayor. We'll start this evening by noting the presence of a quorum.
Kurt Wanninger.
Here.
John Dart.
Here.
Joe Deppner.
Here.
Noah Herron.
Here.
Chad Huff.
Here.
Victor McCarty.
Here.
Patrick Tam.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. The next order of business is approval of minutes from February 23rd, 2026 meeting. Assuming everyone's had the opportunity to review those, need a motion and a second.
Motion to approve the meeting minutes?
Second.
We have a motion made by Councilor McCarty, second by Councilor Waniger. Seeing no other discussion, may we call the roll?
John Dart.
Yes.
Joe Deppner.
Yes.
Noah Herron.
Yes.
Chad Huff.
Yes.
Victor McCarty.
Yes.
Patrick Tam.
Yes.
Kurt Wanninger.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. The next order of business is approval of claims. Assuming everyone's had the opportunity to review those, need a motion and a second.
Make a motion to approve the claims as presented.
Second.
We have a motion made by Councilor Waniger, seconded by Councilor Huff. Seeing no other discussion, may we call the roll?
Joe Deppner.
Yes.
Noah Herron.
Yes.
Chad Huff.
Yes.
Victor McCarty.
Yes.
Patrick Tam.
Yes.
Kurt Wanninger.
Yes.
John Dart.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. We have no changes to the agenda this evening. Director Todd, do we have individuals that like to address the council this evening?
Yeah, we currently have one card.
Great.
Jen, I believe, Jen LaCrua, La Greca. Yeah, come on up.
Hi, Ms. McCraig, thank you very much for being here.
Jen La Greca.
Jan LaCraig.
Genevieve.
Genevieve, thank you.
With a G.
Thank you for being here. If you could just state your name and address for the record, and then it's 3 minutes.
Yes.
So, thank you.
Yes, 3 minutes,
Yep.
I understand. 1445 Old Briar Lane, live in Westfield, but my address is Carmel. So I wanted to address page 154 of the comprehensive plan, and I have it here if I can give it to you. Page 154 of
great.
the comprehensive plan. Thank you. And there's a proposed road that extends Westfield Boulevard from 151st Street down to Greyhound Pass, which is just opposite our beautiful 15 community executive level homes, 15 homes on Old Briar Lane, our cul-de-sac. And so this proposed road would cut down the tree line, which you can see on page 2. There's a tree line there, and now right in front of that mature tree line, there are 3 lots, and according to Zillow, one of them is already underway for construction of a home, and these are $850K to $1.1 million homes, and the other 2 we assume will be. So if you cut down that tree line, you are giving them their backyard view of Goodwill and Target, and you're giving us the view of Goodwill and Target. That's why on page 3 of this, we all signed a petition several years ago opposing the construction of the extension of Westfield Boulevard from 151st Street down to Greyhound Pass, which would end virtually in the backyard of these new homes. It would extend and into the backyard of one of our neighbors. So we all signed that petition, and I was very surprised to see that proposed road on the new plan. And so I ask if you could reconsider taking that road off. That's it.
All right.
3 minutes, huh?
Hey, thank you very much. Thank you for bringing this to our attention. We appreciate it.
Thank you. So what's the next step for us?
Next step for us, that's actually would be in our transportation plan as well. So we'll talk more about that here later this evening as well.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
The next order of business this evening is we have a presentation on House Bill 1001 and all things Indiana General Assembly. From Bose Public Affairs, we have Lindsay Moss-Willie.
Thank you.
See, I'm just jumping around today, so. We have a special recognition for Will Chamberlain. I'm sorry.
Sorry about that, Lindsay. We'll get you here in a second. Will, where you at? Come on, you want to bring your parents up here too? Or you want a video, right? You stay there. Mom, come on up. This is a big deal, folks, and we'll talk about this in just a second. But Will has been honored. He's a recipient of the Congressional Award Gold Medal. And they give out less than 500 of these every year. And to achieve this, and I'll go into a few more details here in a minute, it is really, really hard. From the time I've been on Planning Commission to now, Council to now as mayor, we got 6.5 years of sitting up on that podium. He's the second one from Westfield. That just shows you how rare it is. So I want to read this real quickly. It's a proclamation honoring Will, whereas the city of Westfield proudly recognizes exceptional young residents whose achievements exemplify leadership, service, and personal growth. And whereas Westfield High School senior Will Chamberlain has earned the Congressional Award Gold Medal, the highest honor bestowed by the United States Congress for youth achievement and awarded to fewer than 500 students nationwide each year. And whereas to earn this distinction, Will completed 400 hours of voluntary public service, over 200 hours of personal development, and over 200 hours of physical fitness, and fulfilled the award's expedition exploration requirement through a planned and executed trip to Puerto Rico. And whereas Will has demonstrated extraordinary commitment to his community through volunteer work with Westfield Welcome, Indy Great Pyrenees Rescue, Westfield Aquatics, local libraries, Westfield High School, and Indiana Swimming. And whereas in addition to his service, Will is a dedicated student athlete known for academic excellence, strong analytical skills, and leadership, earning membership in multiple honor societies and recognition as an Indiana CPA Society Scholar. And whereas Will's accomplishments reflect the mission of the Congressional Award and serve as an inspiration to young people throughout Westfield. And now, therefore, I, Mayor Scott Willis, on behalf of the City of Westfield, do hereby recognize and honor Will for earning the Congressional Award Gold Medal for his outstanding contributions to our community. In witness whereof, this proclamation is presented on the 12th day of January. Sorry, we had some hiccups then. I think you might have been sick, or I can't remember exactly why. With the congratulations and pride of the entire Westfield community. Can I get a round of applause? Okay, I'm going to take a nap because I'm really tired just reading everything that he has done. Truly, truly an achievement. And when people say, oh, I'm worried about our future, our youth, I'm here to tell you, I've met a lot of our kids. I was in the high school twice today, and now up here with Will. We are in good hands. And Will, I am confident, we're going to read about him in 10, 15, 20 years for all the successes that he has had in our country. Would you say a few words? Do you feel comfortable saying a few words? I mean, you've done a lot. I'm assuming you can just say a couple of words, or put you on the spot.
I just want to say I have really enjoyed working in this community, and I'm glad to help make it a better place.
Well, and I'd be remiss if I didn't congratulate Mom and Dad. With a great kid comes great parents. And I know you've poured your heart and soul into this young man, and it shows. And we thank you for the way you've raised him to turn him into such a great kid. So thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Without further ado, we'll get back to the program as well, which we now have a presentation on House Bill 1001 from Lindsay.
I'm looking at the mayor to make sure I'm really on. Thank you, Mr. President and members of the council. My name is Lindsay Moss-Willie. I'm with Bose Public Affairs Group. I have the great privilege of representing the city of Westfield at the State House and would like to walk you all through House Bill 1001 that passed in this last legislative session dealing with housing issues. So the broad policy goal here was to address housing shortages and affordability challenges by reducing regulatory barriers that lawmakers believe increase housing costs and slow construction. I would say this definitely did not happen in a vacuum. You've heard a lot of the messaging from President Trump and seeing Congress right now work on a bill dealing with housing affordability matters, trying to increase the production and the speed of affordable housing stock in communities throughout the country. So we see that kind of trickle down at the state level, and Speaker Houston making this the top priority of the House Republicans this session. The fact that it's House Bill 1001 in a budget year, that is the budget bill. In a short session, 1001 is the bill that they attach the most significance and priority to. So this is obviously something that was very important to the House Republicans and the General Assembly by large, because this was actually a bipartisan bill. It wasn't just Republican-led. So what ended up passing in 1001 was pretty drastically different from the introduced bill. The introduced bill had a lot of mandates. It required a lot of action if local communities were going to opt out of certain provisions that were contained in the original bill. Despite how much the bill changed upon final passage, this does send a pretty clear message to local governments that the General Assembly wants local governments to very carefully and thoughtfully evaluate your local land use, zoning, aesthetic standards, you name it. They want local communities to be carefully evaluating these policies to ensure that an adequate affordable housing market is built in communities across the state. This is a little out of order, so. All right, I'm going to start with some of the nitty-gritty provisions of the bill. This was a big one dealing with impact fees. This was really aimed at tightening the political and legal use around impact fees in communities. The primary concern seemed to be ensuring that impact fees were being directly tied to the infrastructure that was required as a result of the new development. So for impact zones and new fees that are established after June 30th of this year, it requires a functional relationship between the infrastructure and the impact zone, that the infrastructure provides a reasonably uniform benefit throughout the impact zone, and that the impact zone is contiguous to the new development, coterminous with a utility service line, or for roads and drainage, that the impact fee be within 5 miles of the new development. When this was originally introduced, it also applied to parks, and it was within 1 mile. So they did significantly scale this back. It does also require some more public input and process, requires a public hearing, but at least 45 days before that public hearing, The unit needs to post online a summary of the proposal and the impact zone improvement plan. So a little more pre-planning is required in order to change impact fees. The bill also requires a builder, a realtor, and a multifamily builder be selected for the Impact Fee Advisory Committee, and each of those members must be selected upon the recommendation of the statewide trade association that represents each industry. I'll go back a little because, how do I go back? Yeah, I just had my slides a little out of order. One more. So now building department fees. This is kind of a continuation of ensuring that fees are tied to development and aren't being used to supplement general fund revenue. Now it will be a 180-day delay between a fee schedule change and its effective date for building department fees, and it prohibits those fees from being updated more than once every 5 years. When they are adjusted, they can only be adjusted up to the cost of inflation unless you can show somehow that there are material costs that justify going beyond inflation. These fees must also be kept in a separate fund and, like I mentioned, be used only to fund your departments and not to supplement general fund use. And it also does encourage faster permitting. From the discussions, it doesn't seem like Westfield will be in this situation, but if an application isn't processed within the statutory timelines, then the applicant has a right to recoup their fees. There are some preemptions on a couple of building codes. You cannot have arc fault circuit interrupters in Class 2 structures or emergency responder communications enhancement systems in Class 1 structures. This was identified as a major cost driver for developers, and they decided to include that preemption. This is on the state level, but will have local impacts because it requires IDEM to update their Indiana Stormwater Quality Manual by the end of this year. It does put some certain parameters around what the state can say, in that no pond bank ratios greater than 3-to-1, and no 10-foot maintenance ledges or 10-foot safety ledges. And then on the local side, you can't require compensatory storage in a floodplain at a ratio that exceeds 3-to-1. On the residential TIF side, this is kind of an ongoing conversation over the past several years. They did allow for the creation of a residential housing TIF program a few years ago, and along the way have made various changes to that. Right now, it's very flexible. Any city or town in Indiana can use it, and you can do it without getting the school corporation approval. There was a sunset date on that flexible use of the housing TIF program. It would have ended that in 2027, but 1001 does repeal that sunset moving forward, and it also extends the life of a housing TIF program from 20 years to 25 years. A few other miscellaneous provisions that don't have a huge direct impact on local governments, other than there will be an ongoing conversation this summer about whether religious institutions should be able to use their properties as a permitted use for residential development. So I mentioned this a little bit on the front end, but as it was introduced, this was a very prescriptive bill in terms of what locals could and could not require from a land use perspective. These provisions almost entirely were amended out of the bill as a blanket requirement, but as part of that kind of compromise, every local unit will now have to do a public hearing to review your unified development ordinances and evaluate whether your UDOs are adequately supporting and promoting affordable housing in your community. And here are the items that must be considered at the hearing. This very much reads like the pressure points for legislators and the developer community. At one point, all of these items were in the introduced version of 1001, and several of these did pass the House as a mandatory requirement that your local ordinances would have had to reflect. So this, I would say, is very much a roadmap to the sorts of items that the developer community and the legislators want you all to be considering as you're looking at your housing policies moving forward. This public hearing needs to be done by the end of this year. And moving forward, there are also other reporting requirements. Beginning January 1 of 2027, and then every year thereafter, you will need to prepare a report that shows the number of housing applications submitted, approved, or denied, including an explanation of any denials of new housing, the net number of new housing units, and the time to process applications. There will also be a required report showing your average and median home sale prices, median rent prices, year-over-year changes, number of residential units constructed and occupied, and new housing units categorized by income scales. This was not in 1001. It was in a DLGF bill, which was about a 450-page bill if you are bored this weekend and want to give that a review. But within this big bill, there was some language that impacts rental ordinances, and I would say by accident also impacts short-term rental ordinances. So effective July 1, 2026, local units are prohibited from adopting any regulations that prohibit or restrict private property owners from using their properties for rental purposes. This came out of situations where a couple of local communities set rental caps in certain communities, especially when they were not able to, the residents of a community weren't able to control growth of rentals in their community through HOAs. So those ordinances that have already passed can remain in place for, I guess, a year and a half until January 1, 2028. But after that, they do have to come in compliance with the rest of the section, which is that the enforcement of health and safety rules, building and fire codes, occupancy limits, and rental registration or inspection requirements can only be put in place so long as it's not targeting rentals only, and you treat those properties the same as you would any other sort of residential property. So I would say inadvertent impact on short-term rentals is the way it was drafted. There is a separate section of code specifically laying out how you can regulate short-term rentals. It passed back in 2018 and has been tweaked since, but has otherwise stayed in place. But the way that's drafted, it appears that this new provision preempts that whole section. So I would say if there's a desire to deal with short-term rentals into the future, it's going to take some legislation in 2027 to clean that up. But with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions this evening from Ms. Willie?
So we're able to put occupancy limits on all houses in Westfield as long as we don't single out Airbnbs or rental houses, correct?
As long as you are dealing with it uniformly as you would with any residential.
But there's a law that does not allow us to limit residential. You can't inspect residential homes for that, so it basically blocks us from doing that.
To put an occupancy level on a house?
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah.
So in other words, the government's hand tying us with a house that used to hold 3 to 4 family members that now has a garage of 20 bunk beds and maybe 5 to 10 other people staying in the house, that when our fire and police go out on an emergency run, they don't know what they're getting into and aware that that house might have that many people in the house or that many people to save. So really the state is dictating to the local municipalities that they can't provide good public safety in our community by hand tying us.
Surprise. Doesn't mean that we can't have a registration program and ask for their occupancy of what it could hold, but we can't legislate or dictate you can only have X in your home. So hopefully we can set up a registration program to at least give our officers and firefighters an idea of what they could be getting into. But no, there is no way we can limit it. We're looking for loopholes, but I don't think they exist.
And I'll add to that too, the number of people staying in the house, basically taking up your whole street with parked cars that you're gonna have to look at all weekend or until they leave. So not happy about that at all.
And I will give kudos, since we're talking about the rentals, to Caitlin and her team. When Carmel and Fishers passed this, the temptation, all of us was, let's pass it too. And Caitlin kept saying, it's going to get stricken down. It's a violation of land rights. And it appears that that's exactly what the state feels as well. So we could have implemented, we could have had short-term relief, but it was going to go away. The good thing is, for you guys, since you've all been on council, we're limiting in HOAs how many homes can be rentals. We can do that. And I talked to several of legislators about this, and they have no desire to change that. But at least when you buy a home going into that neighborhood, you know up front what you can and can't do around rentals. So we'll continue to be aggressive with that. I'm looking for ways that we can make it easier for existing HOAs that maybe didn't have this luxury to add it in. That's a to be determined, but I think the way we're doing it, we can continue to do moving forward.
So based upon that conversation, I'm hearing that there's no ability to regulate occupancy limits. Can you go back to the last slide?
Oops, maybe.
Says you can, I thought, but.
So second paragraph says allows the enforcement of, and it says occupancy limits. What can we enforce? Because I'm hearing we can't enforce anything. Is that just a typo or?
It has to be regulated the same as you would any other residential property. So there's other statutes in place that say, for example, that you can't inspect a private dwelling. So it ties back to other statutes as it's referenced in code.
Okay.
I mean, I think, I would defer to Caitlin and legal, but there might be an opportunity to look at some ways that, like a college town, for example, handles unrelated adults who are living in a household. I mean, maybe there are some creative ways to address it, but specifically dealing with short-term rentals, no.
I see. So 1001 says we can, but there's another statute that says we can't. Effectively.
It says we can't inspect.
And it doesn't necessarily talk about occupancy, but Chief and I were going back and forth about this a few days ago. It does exclude interiors of private dwellings from where the fire department can inspect, unless there's a request to do so.
So there's a difference between a Class 1 and a Class 2 structure. Class 2 structure is your private residence. Fire department does not have any authority in the state of Indiana to do an inspection on private residence unless they're requested or asked by that party. So in the case of a short-term rental, where it is a residential structure, we have zero authority to go in and do an inspection unless the owner invites us in.
But that's an inspection, but if there's an occupancy limit on the house, wouldn't that be different than an
There's
inspection?
nothing in code that gives any definition to an occupancy limit on a Class 2 structure.
Don't get hung up on that word on the screen. The word on the screen is, and how they wrote it, literally refers back to another section which negates any ability to do occupancy.
They create a circular reference here, like in
Yeah.
an Excel spreadsheet, is exactly what they're doing. And so they institute, hey, here's a statute that says you can, refer to the fire code. The fire code says, hey, Class 1 structures. So we could do occupancy loads and all of that in a Class 1 structure, commercial building. I cannot do that in anything in a residential structure.
So-
Even in Indiana Residential Building Code or Residential Code, there's zero limits in there about occupancy and the number of people that can be in there, none. I was talking to my friends at Purdue and West Lafayette when they go to regulate Greek housing, and they're running into the same thing. There's no limit because it is considered a private residence, a Class 2 structure, not a Class 1. believe me, I would love to get involved in this because it is a safety concern from our perspective. And for me, a short-term rental permitting and registration program is the first step, and that's a big win.
And we're
Just so
going
we
to
know where they're
continue
at.
to explore this, guys, but right now, from what we can tell, this isn't possible, but we know what your intentions are. I concur with it. We'll continue to explore loopholes and maybe even lobby legislators to create some exceptions around that. But for now, that's the way we're reading it. That's what we've been advised, and I don't see anything that's going to change our mind at this point, so.
Mayor, with regards to impact fees, I mean, once every 5 years, inflation only. I mean, we usually review those on a number of different factors, including adjacent cities and all sorts of other issues. At one time, park fees were contained within a mile. Now it's 5 miles, which is much better. But from a strategy standpoint on the fees, this really changes. Plus, you go from 90 days to 180 days, I believe is correct. Just from a planning purposes, when, where, and how.
Yeah.
We look at those impact fees because that also helps fund a lot of the amenities and infrastructure that our residents want and expect.
Well, and I had a little bit of heartburn about that one, but after talking to John Nail, I feel very comfortable when you draw radiuses. I don't see any corner of our community where we can't make that 5-mile radius work. I think the other thing too is, and Ironstone's a great example of that, we're changing our strategy around use of road impact fees. Think about State Road 32. That was paid for from a decade worth of saving of road impact fees. We just kept building it, and we paid cash for State Road 32. Not questioning past administrations, that's reality. Our vision moving forward is, especially if we grow beyond what our existing boundary is, we've got development that's going to require roads. Roads, period. There are no roads. So our vision is whatever road impact fees are generated from that development will support the infrastructure needed. Let's not wait till it becomes a problem. Let's fix it proactively, and let's build in infrastructure. Now that we have a very thorough comprehensive plan, much more detailed comprehensive plan, we can be more thoughtful in how we're addressing infrastructure versus the sprawl that we've seen, and then we'll go back and figure it out later when it becomes a problem. So I have no issues with state legislators regulating that because that aligns with our vision as well.
Any other questions, discussion this evening?
I got one other thing I just want to add as well, and we'll have future conversations on this, folks, but if you ask Lindsay or anybody who's at the State House, but they're coming after communities like Westfield. Let's be honest, Tipton, Indiana, they don't have a housing problem because nobody's building houses there. They're coming after communities that are growing because, let's be honest, we all have very tight standards of what we want our community to be. They are allowing us to opt out of an entire bill, which means this is coming back. And they're going to track data, and I'm being told very clearly from Senator Garton, who's the number 2 in the Senate, that they're going to look at this data and make decisions moving forward on allowing opt-outs to continue. We have to be very thoughtful in what we say and do with these developments, and we do have to keep open-minded to things like density and more affordability in our community. I think comprehensive plans, carving out some areas where we're hopeful to get that, in areas that it makes a lot of sense. We talked about this at the last meeting. The average age right now for people buying a home is 40 years old. And my goodness gracious, my kids will probably have multiple kids by then. That scares me that our kids aren't going to be able to come back to Westfield and buy homes. So we've got to think through a slightly different lens. I'm not saying we don't continue to build a quality product. We don't want to inherit long-term problems with cheap housing, but I think there are some strategies we can employ to create a more affordable product in our community. So we'll talk more about that on the back end of the comprehensive plan. I've got some things I've been bouncing around in my head that I want to sit down with you guys and talk about, but I think we can accomplish all of that. But let's just be careful because they're watching communities like Westfield. They really are.
Any other thoughts this evening? See none. Lindsay, thank you for making a pretty tough bill a little bit more palatable. Appreciate that. Next order of business, we'll move into old business very quickly, is Resolution 26104, Fiscal Plan for Ordinance 2606, Chatham Ridge Annexation. At the same time, this is kind of a twofer, which we have Ordinance 2606, which is the Chatham Ridge Annexation. And Mr. Collingwood.
Yep, thank you, President, members of the council, good evening. For the record, Ryan Collingwood with the Community Development Department. The item before you is a 100% voluntary annexation request for what is called the Chatham Ridge annexation. The parcel will be developed as a single-family residence. The total compiled annexation area is about 7 acres in size. The parcel is generally located on the west side of Chatham Ridge Boulevard, seen within the context map. The item was heard at the February 23rd council meeting and is up for adoption and consideration this evening. Thank you. Let me know if any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Collingwood. Any questions this evening? Seeing none, we need a motion and a second for Resolution 26104.
Make a motion to approve Resolution 24104 for the fiscal plan ordinance for Chatham Ridge Annex.
Second.
We have a motion made by Councilor Weininger, second by Councilor McCarty. Seeing no other discussion, may we call the roll on Resolution 26104?
Noah Herron,
Yes.
Chad Huff,
Yes.
Victor McCarty,
Yes.
Patrick Tam,
Yes.
Kurt Wanninger,
Yes.
John Dart,
Yes.
Joe Deppner.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Next item, which we just had a presentation on, is Ordinance 2606 for the Chatham Ridge annexation. I don't believe Mr. Collingwood, any additional commentary there. We need a motion and a second.
Make a motion to approve Ordinance 2606 for the Chatham Ridge annexation.
Second.
I have a motion made by Councilor Weininger, second by Councilor McCarty. May we call the roll?
Chad Huff,
Yes.
Victor McCarty,
Yes.
Patrick Tam,
Yes.
Kurt Wanninger,
Yes.
John Dart,
Yes.
Joe Deppner,
Yes.
Noah Herron.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Ordinance 2607, which is amending provisions in the Westfield, Washington Township Unified Development Ordinance. Mr. Collingwood.
Yep, thank you, President. Council members, once again, good evening. For the record, Ryan Collingwood with the Community Development Department. The petition back in front of the City Council this evening is a proposed amendment to the Unified Development Ordinance, bringing forth as Ordinance 26-07. This UDO amendment pertains to water service for minor subdivisions within agricultural districts. For instances where public water service is not presently available, the provided amendment helps formalize the water access procedure for both the Community Development Department and Fire Department. This item is in front of the City Council this evening for its adoption consideration. The public hearing for this item was held at last week's APC meeting, where the petition had its workshop requirement waived and an 8-0 favorable recommendation given by the APC. Please let me know of any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Collingwood. Any questions, discussion this evening? This is eligible for adoption this evening. We need a motion and a second.
Motion to approve Ordinance 26-07.
Second.
We have a motion made by Councilor McCarty, seconded by Councilor Herron. Seeing no other discussion, may we call the roll?
Victor McCarty,
Yes.
Patrick Tam,
Yes.
Kurt Wanninger,
Yes.
John Dart,
Yes.
Joe Deppner,
Yes.
Noah Herron,
Yes.
Chad Huff.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. A new order, we're moving on to new business. We're going to do a slight tweak here, just because the township trustee was kind enough to open up the door. She's always very thoughtful. Thank you. We're going to have a quick resolution, a very meaningful resolution. 26-110, the City of Westfield and the Westfield, Washington Township, establishing the Westfield Advisory Council on Disabilities for the City of Westfield. Kayla.
Good evening, members of the council. For the record, Kayla Arnold, Director of Communications. Tonight, you are being asked to consider the formal codification of what will now be known as the Westfield Advisory Council on Disabilities. This resolution establishes the council as a joint advisory body between the City of Westfield and Westfield, Washington Township. Its purpose is to provide guidance and community input to the mayor, city departments, the common council, and the township on issues related to accessibility, inclusion, and services for individuals with disabilities. Codifying the council and municipal code is an important procedural step. It formally recognizes the council's role in helping the city identify barriers to accessibility, promote inclusive policies, and ensure that residents of all abilities can fully participate in civic and community programs. The council will consist of 9 appointed members representing perspectives from the disability community, caregivers, advocates, and professionals with experience in accessibility and disability services who all live or work in the City of Westfield. The city's ADA coordinator, Travis Stetnish, will also serve as a non-voting co-chair to help connect the council's work with city operations. In addition to advising on accessibility issues, the council may provide input on city facilities, programs, and policies, support disability awareness initiatives, and serve as a liaison between the city, township, and disability-focused organizations. Ultimately, this resolution reflects Westfield's continued commitment to building a community where everyone belongs and where all residents can fully engage in civic life. For those reasons, we respectfully ask for the council's consideration and adoption of the resolution in front of you this evening. And I think Bridget from the Mayor's Council on Disabilities would also like to make a few remarks.
Thank you, Kayla. Good evening, my name is Bridget Lucan, and I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to share my story. When I moved to the small town of Westfield in August 2000, I would have never dreamed that 26 years later I would be speaking in front of the City Council about the importance of an advisory council on disabilities. I had resigned from my sales job at an international shipping company to raise my kids. I had a 14-month-old Spitfire and one on the way, and I anticipated a short stint at home with these mini-me's prior to returning to the workforce, where I would make money, not a difference, build up my 401k while I supported my kids through school, and be ready to retire to the Caribbean at 50 with all of them out of the house. As you may have guessed, my life had other plans. My early 30s were rocked with diagnosis after diagnosis, as 3 of my 4 children were diagnosed with autism and 1 with a lifelong chronic autoimmune condition. In 2026, almost everyone knows a person with autism, but in the early 2000s, it was much more rare. People didn't understand my kids' behaviors, insurance rarely covered ABA, and we were alone, lost, and clinging to hope. We did survive those years, and in fact, the kids thrived. Westfield Washington Schools was a lifeline, providing support, encouragement, and connection to the resources we needed. I met other families facing similar challenges, and together we navigated our new normal. As you may have guessed, I did not return to my sales job, but instead am now making a difference, not money, at a neighboring high school. I'm proud to say that all my children have graduated, that my 3 adult children with autism are gainfully employed in the medical field, and my oldest 2 are living independently in the community. You may think that this means our work here is done. However, it's just the beginning. My kids' success is largely based on their hard work, but their work ethic has been bolstered by their good fortune of having a mother with a doctorate in special education who knows how to navigate the maze of services, supports, and educational possibilities. We need to ensure that all Westfield families have access to the same resources. Additionally, while my 2 older children are thrilled with both their jobs and their apartment, they live and work in a neighboring city, not ours. As diehard Shamrocks, it was heartbreaking for them to realize that they needed to search elsewhere to find the best work and living arrangements. We need to take steps to ensure that Westfield is a place where everyone is welcome to live and to work. We have made progress, but there is more to do. Disability has changed my life, but not in the way you may think. Parenting my children has made me stronger and more patient, taught me to find joy in places I previously dismissed, and honed me into a no-nonsense, zero tolerance for bullshit advocate that my children, students, and clients need. Above all, it's made me a better human. Last month, many of us were here in this room when Mayor Willis read a proclamation stating that the City of Westfield recognizes people of all abilities to be an important and valuable part of our rich diversity, before he called on each and every one of us to recognize the valued experiences and contributions those with disabilities add to our community, and to find solutions to include everyone in all aspects of community life. I thank you, Mayor Willis, for your leadership in this endeavor, our city council members in advance for your vote, and Nicole Sutherland, our current Westfield Mayor's Council on Disabilities Chair. And I want to welcome everyone here and all Westfield residents as we work together to create a more inclusive and equitable Westfield. Welcome to the party. Thank you.
And with that, we would ask for your vote.
Mayor, do you have any comments?
I'll keep it brief. I think you all know that I tried to lead this charge on council. It got voted down. To this day, I can't figure out why we as a community wouldn't rally around something like this. We are the only city in Hamilton County that doesn't have a disability council that's codified. And I'm excited. I know I've talked to most of you about this already. I appreciate your support. Everybody in this room could one day be disabled. That's reality. Every single person. And it may not touch you today, but it will touch you potentially in the future. So this is a great way to put Westfield on a great path moving forward with some teeth behind it to take care of those with disabilities in our community.
Any other comments, discussion from the council this evening?
Just for the mayor and for the township for taking the courage to move forward with this. It's an important endeavor in our community. And also just a call out to any of the businesses in Westfield to hire those with abilities for their businesses. So commend the city and the township for taking the steps forward to this, and look forward to the council vote in supporting of this.
And just very quickly, thank you, Mrs. Lucan, for sharing your story, but then also to many of you in the community, and frankly here in the audience as well, for talking with us, but then also all the things you do, not just for your own children, but for many others that may be looking for a community that, like ours, that hopefully does the right things in our school system, but then also in our city as well. I'd be remiss, though, not to recognize Nicole Sutherland, but then also specifically our township trustee, Jamie Mills, for gathering and really making sure this all gets put together with the mayor and the council as well. So thank you to many of you. A lot of thanks to go around, but thank you.
I'll just.
Hey, Patrick?
Yes, Councilor Dart.
Yeah. Is there a budget associated with this disability council? And if not this year, is there a plan to have a budget? And what do we see the dollars being used for? How will they be utilized?
Well, let's take it one step at a time. Today, there is no budget. We didn't ask for a budget in 2026 because we weren't sure, if it would be approved. We didn't want to be presumptuous. I don't know if there will be in 2027. We're having conversations around that. I think some of their funding will come through the community through fundraising. But over the next few months, and as this council gets its legs under it, conversations will start happening around, is there a need to fund this? I will tell you, with our sister cities, they do fund it. It's not a lot of money. We're talking thousands, not tens of thousands. So I don't anticipate Westfield being any different.
So is it primarily funding around communication and awareness from the other Hamilton County cities?
Councilor Dart, this is Kayla. We do have dollars earmarked within our promotions line in the communications department to be able to pay for swag when they have booths set up at events, to pay for marketing collateral, things like a tent, tablecloth. So we have earmarked dollars within our budget to do that, and we would be happy to continue doing that if we wanted to keep it within the communications department moving forward, unless there was some type of non-reverting fund that wanted to be established in the future.
Thank you.
Yeah, just real briefly, I want to echo the comments, the sentiments already shared. 3/14/2022, that was the day that the prior council voted it down. It was, in my personal opinion, a very sad day for our community. Ironically, at the time, I was working in the special ed department at the high school. So I know how that vote impacted members in our community. And it was very sad, and also as someone who has had many members of my personal family of all different abilities, kind of again to the comments that were just made, why has our community not supported this yet? So I've been waiting for this for a long time, and I'm glad that we're having this before us tonight. So thank you.
Seeing no other discussion, we need a motion and a second.
Make a motion to approve Resolution 26-110 for the City of Westfield and Westfield, Washington Township, establishing the Westfield Advisory Council on Disabilities for the City of Westfield.
Second.
A motion made by Councilor Weininger, second by Councilor McCarty. See no other discussion, may we call the roll?
Patrick Tam,
Yes.
Kurt Wanninger,
Yes.
John Dart,
Yes.
Joe Deppner,
Yes.
Noah Herron,
Yes.
Chad Huff,
Yes.
Victor McCarty.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you.
We will now go back up to the top for our new business, the introduction of the comprehensive plan presentation by Mayor Willis and Janelle Fairman. Thank you, Caleb.
Before we get to Janelle and Mayor, just want to give a quick outline to the series of presentations that's going to follow this. So first, Janelle Fairman is going to present, kind of bridging the gap between the Urban 3 presentation and the introduction of the comprehensive plan. Then Cynthia Bowen with REA, our consultant, is going to give a presentation that goes over the overview of the comprehensive plan at a high level. And then following that, Mayor Willis is going to have some additional comments after that. So just to highlight the order. So without further ado, Janelle.
Good evening, councilors. I'm not going to spend a lot of time going over what was presented at the last council meeting, but just wanted to make sure if anyone was new to this story who wasn't watching the last council meeting, they had an opportunity to see some excerpts of the report the Urban 3 put together for the city of Westfield in preparation for the comprehensive plan. The first is that we're really trying to set the stage for smart growth within the city. This map that you see here on the right is a 3D image of Indianapolis that had been prepared by Urban 3. I thought this was a really helpful map to provide in context to what we're doing here in Westfield. You can see that there's a spike in downtown that shows that there's an extremely high level of assessed value per acre in the Indianapolis downtown, and that there's kind of a hot spot that runs along the Meridian corridor, if you will. We have a similar type of development pattern that has occurred through the city, or through the cities in Hamilton County that have primarily been formed along the US 31 corridor as well as the trails. And I want to kind of highlight some of the important factors related to that growth. One is that we have certain sources of revenue that are available to the city. Each local municipality in Indiana has the same basic breakdown here, where we have property tax, which you see is here in this gold color. Then we have sales tax, which is a very, very small amount, and then income and other sources. So this would be your local income tax and revenues, other sources that come into local municipalities. Indiana, as you can see, is heavily weighted with income coming from property taxes, well above 75%. We're probably in the 80, 83% here. So disproportionate amount of money coming from property tax, which is why it's so important for our economic growth. The sources of revenue, why does density matter? The concentrated growth really allows us to keep our revenues in line with the costs that are required to maintain the infrastructure and provide public service efficiently. So as opposed to the idea that the opposite of density is lack of development, the actual opposite of density is sprawl. So when you think about developed areas, when you have dense development like we plan for in our downtown or in the Grand Park area, we have a high amount of assessed value per acre on a piece of developed land. Conversely, when you look at single-family residential, we have what is a more spread out or sprawl condition, and the further away that development happens from the primary development areas of the city, the more it costs to bring infrastructure, roads, utilities, public services to that facility or to that group of homes, and the more it costs to maintain that over time. So what we're trying to do is strike a balance. We don't want the entire city to be dense. We want specific areas within the city to have a really high ROI so that we can afford to have various types of living and development within our city boundaries. This is just a brief look at why we have different types of products that we're tracking within our comprehensive plan. We have three basic brackets that our property tax falls into. One is what's called residential homestead. This is a single-family home that is a primary residence where someone files for homestead exemption, and their tax bill cannot exceed 1% of the assessed value of that property. For non-homestead residential, so for example, if someone has a second home in another location, they call that their primary residence, and they have a second home here, they would pay 2% property tax, and the same would be true for multifamily. And then 2% also covers our agricultural land. And then what is considered our 3%, which is actually
well, it's capped at 3%, but our rate is below 3%. We capture all of the taxes that are assessed on commercial and industrial property within the city. I'm not sure what I did there. Yeah, one more. All right. So then I just wanted to do a quick comparison of how we're doing here in Washington Township and compare it to what's happening across all of Hamilton County, Indiana. So what we have here on the left is the concentrations throughout the city of our higher density, high assessed value areas within the city. Some of them are high assessments because the individual home values are high per lot. A great example of that would be Chatham Hills, which you see up there on the upper side. There's a small label here calling out Chatham Hills. So we have very large homes on each lot. We have a similar development style happening here in Bridgewater. And then we have a very different type of development happening over in the Harmony area. And this is where you see homes that are placed closer together, but are not as highly valued per parcel. You can end up with high assessed value per acre in either type of scenario. It's just a matter of how much assessed value you're fitting into each lot over the entire development. The fourth area that we have highlighted is in our downtown. And interestingly, our highest assessed value of any parcel in the city is one of the townhomes at Midland Trace Loop. So this is right along the Midland, and townhomes, because they are very efficiently built on a very small parcel, do have a very high assessed value per acre. So our highest value, again, Midland Trace Loop, we're looking at no more than $18 million per acre of assessed value for anything that you see here in red. Comparison, in the Hamilton County map, you'll see that we have developments in Fishers and Carmel. This is the Carmel City Center in Midtown area and the Village of West Clay. They are coming into this purple area, which is well in excess of $18 million per acre. We have seen up to $22, $25 million per acre in some of those Hamilton County developments. So I just wanted to provide some level of context of what our highest density here is in Westfield compared to the rest of the county. And then the last slide, Mayor, I don't know if you want to go over this one. I had put this in for you, but know that you have another presentation later.
Yeah. No, I'll cover this real quick.
Great.
So one of the things that was really important to us before we put this plan in front of you, I've talked ad nauseum, you all ran on this. We have to diversify our tax base. We have to bring in more commercial development. We can't continue to put all this infrastructure and needs of the city on the backs of our homeowners. So what you're seeing there are just projected AVs and then projected new revenue that you'll see with this plan. So with this plan alone, 39% of it is on the green is 3%. So that's the commercial side. 42% is on the ag or multifamily side, the 2%ers, and 19% is residential. So this is a plan that's very focused on the 2 and 3%ers. Yes, we will continue to build homes. Yes, we'll continue to grow as a community, but we're putting a heavy emphasis on the 2 and 3%ers. We absolutely have to do this. We're about 90%, 10% right now between commercial and residential. And this new plan you can see on the far right is what it will be when it's all said and done. I'm not going to promise you that's where we'll end up because obviously we haven't built anything yet, but you can see a far superior and more sustainable model moving forward of a balanced tax base amongst the 3 different levels.
Yeah, if I could add just one highlight, I think that was a really great recap. And for those of you that can't read the small print here in the back of the room, the orange is the 1% single-family residential, yellow is agricultural and multifamily at 2%, and then the green is the commercial, industrial, and mixed-use developments. The green, which is the commercial, the projected assessed value of that new development is about 25% of what we have shown in our updated comprehensive plan, but it will be collecting about 48% of the taxes, or bringing 48% of the tax revenues, I should say, to the city of Westfield. So I just think it's a really great return on investment for us to invest in those commercial developments within the city. And with that, I think I'm ready to hand this over. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Thank you for allowing me to be here. My name is Cynthia Bowen. I'm a partner with Rundell, Ernstberger and Associate, also a Westfield resident at 20042 Cowie Lane. So I want to thank you for allowing us to come in and at least give you an overview of the comprehensive plan. I could probably talk 2 hours on what's contained in this plan, but I won't. I'll try to keep it here to 15 or 20 minutes just to keep everybody entertained. So we started this process almost 19 months ago, back in September of 2024. And we marched our way through that particular process, and we find ourselves now here at adoption with quite a bit of public input and that helped shape this entire plan. As you can see, part of that was fiscal, part of that was transportation, and the other part is the physical development. As I said, we had quite a bit of community engagement. As you can see there, we have 3 different tiers of engagement. We had a series of workshops for various entities, whether it be the staff, the steering committee who oversaw the process, our elected and appointed officials, and various focus group meetings. We had compiled a series of experts who provided input on the plan. We also had general input opportunities for the public, whether it be at public houses and meetings, pastry with a planner, or through our online website. And then our third component was through other things, such as Community Planning Week. We went to the farmers market, the winter's market. We went out to community organizations and talked with them. Overall, we had 58 different meetings, and about 1,200, more than 1,200 people participate in this entire process. Just looking at engagement online, we had over 4,000 visits to the project website with over 1,300 contributions from the public. And then there were various means for people to get there. 2,000 of them went to the direct project website. Over 880 of them were directed from the city's website, and then over 750 were directed from the city's social media alone. So again, we had good coverage there. So typically what we do is we put a vision statement within the comprehensive plan that serves as the community's aspirational statement, describing the ideal functions that residents, stakeholders, and elected officials collectively hope to achieve. This statement is a concise statement, yet it paints a picture of what Westfield should become over the next 10 to 20 years. The statement provides a unified theme that aligns all other plan elements, and the vision statement also establishes a foundation for identifying the plan's goals. And in this way, the vision statement is not just a ceremonial introduction, but it's an anchor for the comprehensive plan, shaping how priorities are set, resources are allocated, and progress is monitored over time. So I'm going to take you through some of the different place types that we have within the comprehensive plan. Janelle did a great job in kind of bridging that economic gap, as did the mayor, and I know he has a few more words to say. But the place types is the physical development of the city and how it's going to grow over the next 20 years. The first thing we did was we put together a land use matrix that has all the place types down the left side. And then across you see the various land use categories, from the least intensive, from agriculture, and then when I flip to the next slide, you'll see the most intensive all the way over to heavy industrial. What you can see is we have provided for a variety of different mechanisms for development to occur. In the first few place types, these are more single unit, so single family residential units. In the next 4 place types, you see that we're addressing the missing middle, the things that are missing right now from Westfield's residential types. The next several are our employment uses. That's where you see the shift that's going to happen in terms of where the assessed value and the property taxes are going to come. So that series of employment uses. And then finally, we have a couple of tourism uses, encouraging more out-of-town visitors to come and take advantage of all the wonderful things that Westfield has. So next, I want to talk about the place types map. First off, though, I want to say that the comprehensive plan really does serve as a guide for how you should make decisions. It should not be something that we've created and set back on the shelf. It should be something that is a living and breathing document. So back when you had Grand Park, we had that opportunity before us. That wasn't in a comprehensive plan. They had to actually come back and amend the plan because it was a changing condition. Well, the same thing still holds true now. This plan needs to continue to evolve as Westfield evolves and our opportunities rise before us. So again, this serves as a guide, but it's not set in stone of what we need to do. So this here is the place types map. It has a bunch of different colors on it representing a bunch of different things. But just a high-level overview, if you see kind of the yellow and the dark yellow, light yellow to medium yellow to dark yellow areas, those are going to be the various residential place types that are going to range from single-unit homes to townhomes to potentially small-rise apartment complex and mixed use. You see the pink, dark pink, and purple areas. Those are going to be your general industrial, your flex industrial, and our innovation district that focuses on new businesses, headquarters, and campuses. You'll see that we have a couple of green areas on there. The ones down here towards the south are more of our agri-hood and our state rural and equestrian, protecting those areas. And then you'll see we have a couple of different blues. This dark blue here is our downtown, and where you're going to see the greatest density. Then you have these other light blue areas here along 32 and up here and a couple of other places. And what that is our trail-oriented development. So looking at how do we replicate some additional density, higher density in very specific places throughout Westfield. So in certain areas, we are, as Janelle said, going to need that higher density of those employment uses, but also as residential uses, because we need to close that gap between what's needed in infrastructure and how we can pay for that through the bulk of our property taxes. I think you remember 2 weeks ago when Urban 3 was here talking about this gap. I mean, where we are, what we currently spend annually, and then what we are going to need in the future. And we wanted to ensure that this plan was going to support and close that gap, and it does. So one of the things that we looked at here was nodal development, looking at that concept of where we start with higher level, higher density. So you can see the blue with the trail-oriented development here, which would be of the highest density. You have a village center here, which is going to have greater density than what we see now. If you think about Spring Mill and 161st Street, you would seem to think that that's a pretty dense commercial area, and it really isn't. We are thinking about having higher density with 2- and 3-story buildings in a mix of uses, mixed use, compared to a single use occupancy of what that commercial corridor is. What you see surrounded with the dark yellow here is the village neighborhood. That is how we scale the density down into offering different residential types. Whether it's townhomes, whether it is live-work units, those types of things, those would be in this medium yellow. Then we have the very light yellow, the pale yellow, which are densities that we might see as 3 and 4 dwelling units per acre. So things that we're used to seeing that have happened over the last 20 years that could be contributing to our sprawl. We still, though, see those at a little bit higher density than what we currently have right now. But targeted increase in density in key areas, that is where it makes sense, and that is how we're going to close this gap. So what I want to do is walk you through a couple of different place types, ones that I think are key critical to this plan. The first one being the village neighborhood. And so what we're looking at here is this provides an overview. Every place type is set up this way, where it has a 2-page description that talks about what the place type is. in what are the key characteristics of it. So in this place type, we're looking at single-unit dwellings that could be attached or detached. We also would like to see some low-rise apartment buildings that may only be 4 to 8 units, a product that we do not have in this market right now. We want to make sure that they have consistent setbacks, that they have a design style that meets with the aesthetic of the adjacent neighborhoods. We want to make sure that any infill development or redevelopment to this place type is consistent with what is already developed there. We want to make sure that civic and institutional uses are located nearby, and that neighborhoods may on the outskirts have small-scale businesses that cater to the residents' daily needs. The second page of the setup to our place types shows then what the recommended land uses are. What would be the primary uses, which you see in the full circle? What are secondary uses, which you see in kind of the half circle? And then with the kind of open circle saying this is not really consistent with what would be the character of this area. We also talk about the street patterns and what we would see as the preferred road network types. The next pages then have precedent imagery of what we'd like to see in terms of the character and the style of development, as well as illustrating landscaping, walkability, and connectivity. We then back that up with a series of standards. So each place type has a series of standards focusing on mobility, so all of the different ways that we should get around this particular place type and what type of connectivity there should be. We then move on to site design and look at block and lot patterns. What are the various access points and how should they be accessed? What that connectivity should be. We look at building placement and where and how close and what type the different mix of land uses should be from one another. We then go through another series from setbacks to parking to amenities and open space to landscaping and stormwater management. Even looking at stormwater management from a regional perspective will also help in bringing down costs of construction, but also save money for the city in the long run. We then will have a series of special considerations that are going to be particular to that particular place type. And in this case, you may be able to see that office, commercial, or retail uses really need to be located at the perimeter of these types of neighborhoods at key intersections that can support that type of growth. The next one that I want to talk about is the village center. And this village center was the pink area, if you remember, in the middle of the map. So not quite as high density as our trail-oriented development, but it would allow a mix of residential and commercial and retail uses within this area. It would act, if you will, as a mini Main Street for these neighborhoods, supporting lower rise buildings, 2 to 3 stories. Again, really focusing on connectivity, the grid network, and how people can get from their homes to this village center area, either by walking or by biking. Of course, architectural character is going to be important and need to be a key consistent theme. And then we need to make sure that we provide transitions from this area down to the village neighborhood, which I just talked about. Again, we have some precedent imagery to kind of show the wide sidewalks, the ability to have dining outside. This is what makes these types of uses successful, and having open public spaces where people can gather. The next type is a master planned mixed use. This one is going to be located along primary major transportation corridors. It's going to be at the edge or the established commercial areas. We are looking that in the future, non-residential development should integrate with the existing design of these particular areas, and that we're starting to introduce an element of residential so that these become more, if you will, maybe not 24/7, but at least greater than just 8 to 5 in terms of our commercial areas, but then we're able to prop them up. We also want to make sure it provides low-impact transition from higher density residential and commercial areas to the lower density. So this serves as a buffer. And again, it shows the different types of housing style or commercial areas that we could bring into this type of place type. More smaller scale, smaller lots, and then in some cases, adjacency or attached housing. The next one that I've mentioned a couple of times is our trail-oriented development. And really what that is, it's a new concept being introduced in this comprehensive plan compared to the last one. It really wants to ensure strong mixed-use development, high-density development along our named trails. We want to make sure that we have a mix of medium to high scale intensity of uses. But what's even more critical is that this development is interacting with these named trails. They're not just alongside, but there are elements that plazas, access to benches, refreshments, those types of things, gateways, art, that are helping make and really thrust this into a unique high-density area within various elements of the city. This here just shows you again some precedent imagery of how different developments have incorporated development into their trail access and that it surrounds it on all sides. It's not merely adjacent to it, and it's accessible by many, whether walking, biking, or running. The next to the last one I want to discuss is destination development. This is one of our kind of tourism uses, but what's important is that this is an experiential type of development. We want to look at having entertainment, recreation, restaurants, experiential type retail that come here and draw in not only our Westfield residents, but also the tourism folks that come in for Grand Park. We want them to make it a week of it instead of 2 or 3 days of it. So it's going to be upscale and large-scale retailers having entertainment. We need to make sure that these are easy to identify gateways and landmarks to really create that sense of arrival, that sense of place. It's going to be, this type of district is a park once, then get around in multiple different ways. So that way we're not relying on the automobile, but we're relying on things like a trolley, people riding their bikes, people walking to get to these areas and take care of this. There will be a mix of indoor and outdoor spaces, and really the street designs should accommodate and anticipate the traffic volumes along with this. So again, you see some different types of development that we have here. Of course, the Grand Park Development Concept Plan is the one that is guiding the development of this and what this looks like. But then you'll see some other experiential themed types of uses, both indoor and outdoor, to draw people to the area. Whoops. The last one I want to talk about is the Innovation District. And this one is really our key hallmark type of employment use or employment place type. It really is going to be where we're going to see the office and flex space come together to really support entrepreneurship, support businesses that are advancing technology, we're seeing research and development. And so this type of development is going to be compact, in a more urbanized area where pedestrians and bicyclists are the ones that are really integral to that streetscape. Buildings should be designed for multiple tenants and be adaptive for a mix of uses. Not only that we have employment uses, but we should have other uses, retail and service-based uses that are going to support this particular place type. The architecture and streetscape design are going to matter, and we need to make sure that there is still connection to residential, but because we know young adults who are wanting to move into a community, they want to be able to live where they live and be able to walk to work. And so we're providing these opportunities through this innovation district. So again, as you can see here, more campus-like setting, buildings that have more architectural style, that have public gathering spaces or private gathering spaces for businesses to kind of engage and innovate between one another. So with that, like I said, I could go on. There's so many different things that are within this comprehensive plan that I really couldn't do justice in 15 minutes. But our next steps from here are that we have a Plan Commission hearing this Wednesday. We will then, the following Monday, come back for Plan Commission adoption. And then we will be back in front of you on March 23rd to answer any further questions and hopefully have adoption from you as well. And with that, I'll turn it over to the mayor.
Thank you, appreciate that. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide, Kevin. So I want to give a little bit of a history. I know many of you up on this stage know this, but not everybody, and certainly people in the audience may not. So I want to just give a little history on the city's first comprehensive plan and how we've gotten to where we're at today. The first comprehensive plan was passed in 2007, roughly 19 years ago. And although we have added 8 addendums to that plan since adopted, there hasn't been a wholesale review and change of that plan in quite some time. And I think most planners will tell you 10 years is kind of that window where you're getting to that, stretching it too far. And it certainly has created, I think, conflict and friction in our community with that lack of updating that plan. At the time, 138 residents participated. I will tell you, if you were part of this in the audience, you'll know this. It started out 138, it got down to about 25. Everybody got angry because they weren't getting what they wanted. You can't get 5 people to figure out what they want on their pizza, add 138 people and see where it goes. That was about 0.5% of the population. So a very small group of our residents actually had a voice in this plan. There were 6 broad land use categories that were identified. And if you look at that photograph, that picture in the bottom right, that's what our current comprehensive plan looks like. And if you live in one of those colors, you really have no idea what's coming. We have these lofty titles like new suburban, old suburban, all that good stuff. But it's not real detail. Now, I will tell you, the adopters at the time said that's exactly what they wanted. And when I served on APC, I can remember fighting with our director of community development at the time around, well, you say density decreases over time as you go west. What define density? Is a retention pond considered use or no use? What about parking lots? What about no answers? No answers. And again, he'll tell you that was the plan. So that's what we inherited. Next. So let's talk about advancing Westfield 2045, which is what in front of you today. Roughly 6,000 residents have participated in various ways, online, in meetings, attending events that we had, place-type events. That's roughly 10% of our population. We have 19 very specific place types that we've identified. We are providing clarity to the future of Westfield, and I think that's really, really important. Our residents who buy a house that backs up to a cornfield, now they know exactly what to expect moving forward. And I think we owe that to our residents who are investing in our community. Next slide. So let's talk a little historical perspective. I hear this all the time. Oh, you're running Westfield, you're growing too fast. I liked it when we were a small town. Hey, full transparency, folks. I moved here in 2004. We were about 8,000 to 10,000 people. And if you'd have told me at that time that Westfield was going to be what it is today, I may not have moved here. I wanted a small school district. I grew up in a small town, as most of these folks up on the stage did as well. But things change. And what really set that in motion was in 2005, then Governor Mitch Daniels announced the Major Moves Transportation Plan. You may not know what that is, but you certainly felt the impact of it. If you remember back the good old days, if you got off 32 and got on 31 and headed towards Indianapolis, you were greeted with stoplight after stoplight after stoplight. And I swear they purposefully timed it so you hit every single one of them. And it took about 20, 25 minutes sometimes to get to 465. Since Mitch Daniels removed all the stoplights from I-465 north all the way to South Bend. You can get on 31 now, and if you drive like I do, you can be on 465 in about 5 minutes. Maybe 10 minutes if you drive the speed limit. Much, much faster. So what did that do for us? That turned us in from a small town in the middle of nowhere, because if you remember, when you left 32, you didn't really see a lot till you got to the Walmart, or maybe even all the way until you got to that first stoplight in Carmel, to we are now a suburb. Whether we like it or not, folks, we are a suburb of the city of Indianapolis. And history tells us that if you look at what's happened to our neighbors to the south and our neighbor to the east, townships are getting consumed. We can put our head in the sand and we can pretend that's not going to happen here, but if you're a student of history, you know it will. So what do? Do we reject the notion that growth's going to happen, or do we plan for it? And when I ran for mayor, I swore that we were going to plan for it. I'm not asking a single farmer to sell their property. I'm not asking a single resident to move. I'm just simply creating a vision so that if that day happens and that farmer decides they want to cash out, we control what it looks like. We're not going to be a patchwork of development, of sprawl in our community. We actually have a vision. Next slide. So why is this important? It shapes how we grow over the next 2 decades. I just kind of mentioned, I touched the surface. You wonder why we have 90% of our tax revenue come from residential? Because we didn't have a plan for anything other than that. We had no plan. We accepted what came to us as long as it fit into the general framework of what we wanted. This aligns our land use, our transportation needs, our utilities, economic development, and quality of life. Folks, I'm here to tell you, this is the first time I've ever been involved up close with something like this. It is complicated, and I commend my team and our consultants for really working diligently to make sure we're looking at all of this. We're tying it all together in a way that we can look back 20, 30, 50, 100 years from now, and we can say, I don't know who that mayor or city council was at that time, but they had a plan and it made sense. It allows us to grow with purpose and a vision. I've covered that. It creates a unified vision for the entire township. If you live in the township today, don't sell your land. We're not going to annex you. Stay right the way you are. But if there's a plan down the road to do something different, we now have a vision for that. Quite frankly, it supports Westfield Washington Schools district plan. Folks, they're building infrastructure for the growth. And if we don't come side by side with them in a way that supports them, they're going to spend a lot of your dollars on buildings that we will never need. And it will bankrupt the city over time. So it's important that we have a plan that aligns with them. And I will say, I'm very proud to say, the schools had a seat at the table on our steering committee. They had a very strong voice. And if at any time the school said, I don't like that or that will cripple us, we didn't do it. So our schools are walking side by side with us through this. It provides options for landowners. Look, folks, I'm going to tell you right now, I know this council knows this. I am a huge land rights mayor. I believe you have the right, when you own your land, to be able to sell it if you want. And I don't think the government should step in and say, you can't sell your farm. I know it's really expensive to farm in Westfield now. I know you don't have anybody that wants to carry on the family legacy. I'm sorry, you're going to continue to pay taxes for that land, which quite frankly now is worth about $100,000 an acre. When I moved here, it was about $5,000. Imagine being a farmer paying 2% on $100,000 an acre. We have a farmer in this community who owns 2,000 acres. 2,000. I hope he never cashes out. I hope he stays a farmer in Westfield. But if he doesn't, we now have a plan of, okay, but this is what we'll accept if you decide that's what you want to do. I think it's the right thing to do. It recognizes the fact that agriculture, we're changing from an ag economy. That used to be Westfield, right? Hey, my descendants came to Westfield in the mid-1800s, and they were all farmers. Nobody in my family farms anymore, and that's changing here in the central Indiana area. We recognize that, and we're building a new economy moving forward. And I've already talked about how difficult farming is, not only from a cost perspective, but I can tell you with a lot of the people who have now live in Westfield, the last thing they want to do is get behind a tractor. The last thing the farmer wants to do is interact with you on the roads. They will tell you drive crazy. And if they've seen me drive, they know I drive crazy. So the interaction between farming and a suburb that we are growing into, it's creating challenges, and we owe it to them to have an off-ramp. So let's talk about the map. We've already covered this a little bit. I won't talk too deep about it. It does balance residential and commercial development. It was absolutely critical that we start creating more places for commercial development. It will support a stronger tax base and a more sustainable tax base for our city moving forward. You like low taxes? I like low taxes. I don't want to ever raise taxes on our residents. The only way we do that, folks, is by growing our commercial tax base. It's the only path forward, and that's absolutely critical we do that. In saying all that, we are preserving the northwest and southwest corners of our township. Right now, we're saying they're off limits. I can tell you I've already made some enemies. I've gotten a few calls, hey, I want to sell my land. I said, great, sell it to another hobby farm family because we're not going to allow development up there. Believe it or not, we got people, you would think that the people in the township are screaming about not wanting development. There are certainly some of those, but there are also some that want to cash out. We're going to be very strong-handed here, at least in the near future, with this vision to say we have areas where we don't want change in our community. I think it's important. We're creating these village centers. I know Hortonville is very controversial. At Ironstone, that is the start of what will be a series of these. And what we're trying to do, folks, is create a village, a small town feel inside a large city, where you can literally walk out of your house down a trail to a little ice cream shop or a restaurant or a coffee shop. We're trying to create these little destinations or places for our residents who don't want to live in the middle of our downtown area, which will tend to be a bit more denser. We're creating these riverfront districts. So if you see that blue line in the middle of nothing, flat cornfield, I know this is crazy, but the state of Indiana has this law around riverfront districts. Literally, it can be a dry creek bed that hadn't seen water in 100 years, but it's deemed a creek, and we can turn that into a riverfront district, which allows liquor license and other things outside the state statute around how many liquor licenses you get based on population, and it allows us to create some really cool development. So our vision with those riverfronts, council, when you see that, it's not high-rise hotels on these rivers. It's just a little bit more of a dense housing product, restaurants and shops, and the thought is, we'll look at stormwater and drainage into those creeks to bring them back to life. So when you plan like this, you can say, hey, instead of a retention pond, the water's going to flow here. So we're going to be able to bring back to life some really cool water features that existed in Westfield long time ago. We're going to preserve areas of woodland. When you see that little green area with green lines going through it, that is wooded areas that we're saying hands off. Now, I'm not going to say that council or future councils in the future might not make exceptions to that. Not every tree has to be saved. We do have a pretty strong tree preservation program that we passed when I became mayor and they came on council that forces developers to replace those. And so we're going to continue to lean on that, but we are trying to save some of our older growth woodland areas. And so you're going to see a lot of that. And trust me, folks, I've taken a lot of heat on that already. Imagine if you own a 40-acre parcel of land and 5 acres is wooded, and I just said that land is now worthless because you can't develop it. That's a tough sell, right? That's controversial, but we're trying to find a balance in our community moving forward. And it creates areas for high tech and life science. We know we need to bring in more commercial. It's not going to be all drive-up restaurants and CVS pharmacies. We got enough of that. I heard we need more chicken restaurants and donut shops, so I'm working on that. But this is going to create a little bit better of a product to bring in a much higher return on our commercial development, but also bring in jobs into our community. And as Janelle's already covered, we've already covered those rates, but that's what it will look like in the future. And I'm telling you right now, if we can develop to that, we'll have a more sustainable and stronger tax base than any of our sister cities in Hamilton County. I think Carmel's 55-45. That's about the closest that we would have. And then I'll also tell you that trails, we will have the most trails in Hamilton County. I don't know, maybe in the country. I'm just going to throw it out there. But this plan is filled with trails and walkable areas for our community, not just the perimeter trails around residential. We're going to really lean into that. So that little map down in the corner, that's a bit of a dated map. So don't look at that and say, wait a second, it doesn't look quite like the one that was just shown to me. I just put it up there for effect. Look at that compared to our original plan. This is a well thought out plan. You're not going to like everything on it. Council, you're not going to like everything on it. I understand getting 7, 8, 10 people together and agree on something this massive and detailed is impossible. But I hope people will agree. We spent a lot of time and energy, almost 2 years, coming up with this vision, and I think it's a great plan. Lastly, I'd be remiss if I didn't thank a lot of people here, did a lot of heavy lifting. First, REA, thank you so much. You've been a great partner. I know we've been a pain in the you-know-what, but we appreciate your service to our community. And you being a Westfield resident, I just think that's really cool that we have an international company supported by a local resident. Citizen-led, for those in the room or those listening in that supported this and were a part, countless meetings and hours donated to the city to help create this vision, thank you. You're leaving a legacy in Westfield for decades to come. My staff, every single staff or every single department had a role in this. In fact, when we got into December, right before the holidays, I pulled my entire staff in. We went line by line through every word in the plan. We went back through the map. We chewed it and spitballed it one more time. I don't think there's much more we could have done on that. And then just a special thank you to Kevin, to Caleb. I know this is really your baby, your team's baby. Job well done, and we really appreciate the work that you put into it. I'll just wrap up by saying, look, folks, we're not asking anybody to sell a property. I could care less if another house is built in Westfield. I really don't care. What I care about is that we have a plan moving forward and that we have a vision for the future of this city. If it takes us 1,000 years to build it, great. We're fine with that. But I also want to make it very clear, this does not rezone anybody's property. There's still a process that you have to go through. This, again, is just what it can be. So with that, I will toss it to council, I think.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Any questions, comments, discussion this evening?
Well, I agree with you, Mayor, on one thing. Not everybody's going to like this plan. They didn't like the last one. I was here in 2007 when that came forward. I didn't like it. There's parts of it I did like. And I'll tell you, throughout the years, previous councils, they made great decisions and they made not so great decisions, but based on the knowledge of what they knew at the time and what they felt was best for the community. And that's what we do while we're up here as well, try to do what's best for the community. However, when I decided to run for city council, I met with Scott and we talked about this. This was our priority. We need to get this updated. The last plan was a great plan to get started in our community. This gives us better vision and direction to more fine-tune those areas. Will it develop exactly the way you see it up on the board? It won't. We're a council. There'll be other councils after us. There'll be other visions. And that was the other big part of it, was we were changing so rapidly and so quickly. For those that don't know what I do on a daily basis, I go into municipalities and utilities and I help them develop a 5 and a 10-year and a 30-year basically master plan and capital improvement plan for their utilities. I can tell you we update those every 5 to 10 years because we have to. We have to stay up with the community, with the growth, with the infrastructure, with the failing infrastructure and those types of things. And that's what this plan should do. I feel that this is something we should come back and revisit at least every 5 years and continue to upgrade and to improve that plan. Again, not everybody's going to like it. I can tell you there's parts of this I don't like. There's parts of it I do like. But it does create that guidance, that vision. As you said, it's aspirational for our community. And but it won't turn out probably exactly what we like, but it does give us a path moving forward. And I think this is a plan that we need to have in our community, develop a strong community and cohesive community for our community moving forward.
Thank you. Any other comments this evening? So this has a process that was talked about earlier for those in the audience. Just wanted to point that out again. So you have, this is simply a first reading. You have an APC special meeting March 11th, this Wednesday. And then it would come back to the APC, the Area Plan Commission, for following Monday, which is March 16th. Councilor McCarty, you probably have the time starts of those meetings, or those 7 o'clock as well?
Excuse me. This Wednesday is going to start at 7 o'clock, but then on Monday, the meeting will be here. Typically, our second meeting is our workshop meeting at City Services, but it will be here, but it will start at 7:30 because of RDC.
Okay, thank you.
And ma'am, if you stay afterwards, we'll address your concern regarding the thoroughfare and transportation plan. That is a plan that is updated about every 5 years. That will be, Jonathan, that was updated about 4 years ago, 3 years ago. Yeah, but basically that plan gets updated, and they will probably be going through that again here shortly to take and revisit. That plan, like I said, is updated every so many years, and that will be updated again with this plan as they look at their road impact fees and things like that as well. So if you stay afterwards, we'll spend some time with you and discuss it with you.
Separate from the comprehensive plan, because that was in the plan. And it said you're beginning public discussion of it March 9th, and you're going to finalize it March 23rd. So is this a done deal, or is it what is being said? It's a draft. So are there any changes?
Yeah, excuse me. Yeah, ma'am, we can talk. If it's specifically a road that's already been planned, that's outside of this comprehensive plan. This comprehensive plan just sets a framework. I think what you're talking about is something that's in our infrastructure vision for this area, and that is a little bit more set in stone, but we'll talk about. We're happy to engage you with that. And by the way, I think that was approved 4 or 5 years ago, so don't beat these guys up too hard. They weren't on council at the time.
Anything else this evening? We're going to move on to our next item then, which is Resolution 26-111, which is Common Council approving a temporary permittee within the downtown Westfield designated outdoor refreshment area for March 13th, 2026, Four Fingers Distillery. We have our Director, Kayla Arnold.
For the record, Kayla Arnold, Director of Communications. You have two back-to-back resolutions for a temporary DORA permittee for an event happening this weekend at Grand Junction Plaza. So this allows for a temporary vendor to come into a designated space within the downtown DORA district. And so this is just part of the ordinance that was passed for our overall DORA district. I'm happy to take any questions you might have.
Any questions this evening? Councilor McCarty?
Just regarding the Four Finger Distillery one, I know Sun King, they'll not be quite open yet on Saturday, but for Four Finger, aren't they already in the DORA district? So I just wanted that.
Yeah, so they are they're within the DORA district, but they will be vacating their premises to come over to the permitted vendor area as part of the space at Grand Junction Plaza. So it's kind of a unique one there.
So this is just for them to operate at a different location, essentially?
Yes, this is just for the event Shamrock Drop this Saturday. So this is only for this Saturday.
Seeing no other questions, we need a motion and a second for Resolution 26-111.
Motion to approve Resolution 26-111.
Second.
We have a motion made by Councilor McCarty, seconded by Councilor Waniger. Seeing no other discussion, may we call the roll?
Kurt Waniger,
Yes.
John Dart,
Yes.
Joe Deppner,
Yes.
Noah Herron,
Yes.
Chad Huff,
Yes.
Victor McCarty,
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Resolution 26-112, very similar in nature. Common Council approving a temporary permittee within the downtown designated outdoor refreshment area for March 13th, 2026 for Sun King Brewery. I don't think there's
Happy to take any questions if you might have them, but this is the same, just for Sun King rather than Four Finger.
correct. We need a motion and a second.
Motion to approve Resolution 26-112.
Second.
A motion made by Councilor McCarty, seconded by Councilor Waniger. May we call the roll?
John Dart,
Yes.
Joe Deppner,
Yes.
Noah Herron,
Yes.
Chad Huff,
Yes.
Victor McCarty,
Yes.
Patrick Tam,
Yes.
Kurt Waniger.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ordinance 2610, annexation for the Markham parcel. We have Mr. Collingwood from our planning department.
Yes, thank you, President. Once again, council members, good evening. For the record, Ryan Collingwood with the Community Development Department. The item before you is a 100% voluntary annexation request for what will be called the Markham parcel annexation. A total compiled annexation area of about 2.34 acres. Parcel is generally located on the south side of West 186th Street, just across the street from Grand Park, seen in the location map exhibit on the screen. This item is noticed for a public hearing this evening, has been properly noticed and advertised. It will be eligible for adoption at your second March meeting, where the fiscal plan and resolution will also be compiled. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions this evening?
Is it a residential property?
We could have a little bit more detail at the second meeting, but I believe it'll be some sort of hospitality resort use. But we will provide a little bit more detail on that second meeting in March.
Yeah, it's currently zoned.
Wheeler Landing PUD.
Okay.
It's almost effectively an island right now. It's already, the surrounding area is all annexed.
Correct, yeah.
So this is just an introduction this evening. We do need to conduct a public hearing. We'll open up the public hearing at 8:46 p.m. this evening. Seeing no one stepping forward, we're going to close the public hearing at 8:46 p.m. as well. This will be eligible for adoption consideration on the March 23rd meeting. Our next item of business is ordinance 2612, which Common Council creating a new fund for Department of Justice Equitable Sharing Program, Fund 240. We have our Police Chief Keene, who's been well informed of the mayor's poor driving habits this evening, of speeding.
I don't know. To explain this, I could go into detail. I know it's been late, but I'll just give you the kind of skimmed down version. This will also be coming back next week for appropriation on this. Essentially, with the federal equitable sharing account that we have, basically a couple months before I got here in 2024, it appears that the department received some seizure funds at the federal level, about $26,000. Mistakenly, that money was placed into the department's LEAF account, which is for asset forfeiture, but it's meant for only state level forfeitures. So what should have happened is, all along, the department should have had a separate account established for those federal seizure funds. They cannot be commingled. And so what we're asking you to do here is correct that by establishing this separate fund for this account, and then at the next meeting, we would ask to appropriate the money that was placed in 2024 into the proper account. We've already notified the federal equitable sharing representatives, and we've corrected that with our filing, which just occurred last month. So I'm happy to go into detail with you if you want, but that's basically the bare bones of the situation.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions, comments this evening? Seeing none, we will have this as eligible for adoption at our next council meeting. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
City Council comments, Councilor McCarty, APC.
Yeah, we had really all public hearings, but did take a couple of actions. First was the built PUD that came back to us, but that received a vote. Since there were no longer any additional issues with that, that will be coming before this body here relatively soon. The Onyx and East project on 199th, additional 15 lots. We held a public hearing for that, as well as commentary from the public, and the Trace Commons PUD that's on State Road 32 and south of Shady Nook with the potential new roundabout and mixed-use development. We had the public hearing for that, good commentary regarding tree preservation, as well as just uses and being a good neighbor to those that live there currently. The amending the UDO, we took action on that this evening, and that was it.
Thank you. Any other comments from council this evening? Mayor?
No further comments.
Can I entertain a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you. We are adjourned. Huh?
Right, Caitlin. Caitlin.